All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. 4 games up this week. The first of which is okay. No theming intended here. Granted, outside of like the core basics here, this has a passing resemblance to a game we reviewed last week in that it is a narrative adventure game. With heavy emphasis on the narrative. Though this one isn't attached with, any sort of like actual game mechanics outside of, choosing an option. It's a pure narrative adventure. No, metal detecting or, any other sort of game bits and bobs. And that's probably because this is a much more personal tale. In fact, they call it semi-autobiographical. And they do note some things are exaggerated, and sure, names have been changed to protect the innocent and all that stuff. But No Longer Home is an interesting tale about a particular moment in time that, if you haven't gone through it, it's really hard to explain. Not so much the other part of this. Okay, so I should get into what this is about. No Longer Home is about two non-binary people who met during university, but are about to be forced apart because they have both graduated university, and one of them being from Japan. This takes place, by the way, in London, England. I found it interesting that one of the characters was East Asian. South Asians are a lot more represented in, the UK for, colonialism reasons. Anyway, this is about them having to deal with, post-college life. Like I said, that is a very rough period of time. I have graduated college. That was a while ago, but I do remember that whole sense of figuring out what to do after that. And it's a very specific set of ennui. Not as strong as this one because, wasn't about to lose someone important due to the fact that their fucking student visa was expiring. But it's still, a lot of soul searching, a lot of, okay, now you head into the quote unquote real world. Alex, I'm sure you could relate to that since you graduated college as well.
Yeah, kind of went to a long period of freaking trying to get a job and mostly failing, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far. This is like the immediate post-graduation in that they're still wrapping up all of the loose ends, because they lived off campus. They have to make.
Yeah, I never lived off campus, and I didn't go to school too far away from home, so I got less of that than some people would. But
it's like this one I know because I did live off campus, and in addition to graduating, I was dealing with all of the post-graduation things because I was moving to the other side of the state. Yeah, and
it's not that tiny of a state.
No, it's not. But this is taking not just dealing with the responsibilities of that. You've got the melancholy of moving on past their flatmates. Once again, they live in London, so expensive place to live.
Generally, yeah.
It's another theme of the game. Like, they managed to find a affordable place to live. One reason was bunking with 2 other people. I managed to avoid that particular college experience. Thank you very much. This kind of living situation, not unusual, especially in somewhere like London.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the main
The more urban your school, the more likely you're going to be someone's roommate in an apartment or something.
I would say that's one of the more minor themes. Not surprising from a game featuring two non-binary characters. This is a very lefty production. Though I was appreciative that they realized how useless a lot of leftists are. Like they mentioned like going to a fucking Marxist meeting one time, and everybody was just arguing with each other, which is accurate. Never went to a Marxist meeting, but look, lefties have a predilection to argue. It's a whole thing. I don't really have time to get into the whole political ramifications of that. But, it's bemoaning kind of the state of the world, not just, finding affordable housing, but, trying to find a good paying job, all that kind of stuff. It's there, but like I said, it's not really a screed about the modern world. It's not. It is a critique of capitalism, but it's not the main focus. Is what I'm getting. So, if you're looking at along those lines, I wouldn't really recommend diving in, because this is really more about the personal sorting of emotions. And I suspect that's why this game was created in the first place. Because, as mentioned, this is based off of the creator's own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's not a long experience. It's just a couple hours. But it's very robust, not just in terms of emotional texture, but the game part of the game, or at least the graphics, very stylized, very active. That is to say, the backgrounds, the modeling, it all shifts around while various cutscenes are playing. Shockingly dynamic. Probably my favorite part of the game, if I'm being honest. So it's a lot. Not gonna lie. It also gets into some dark subject matter. Nothing too heavy, I'd say. But it's got warning on sensitive subjects, mild suicide ideation, depictions of depression, dissociation, and alcohol, mentions of dysphoria and stabbing, because that's really attached to that whole non-binary coefficient here. There's no other way to put it. They don't have an easy time at school. Easier as the years go by, but they face a lot of prejudice because non-conforming people, not just in terms of the British culture, but the Japanese culture that comes up as well. And it takes a toll. It's like I can't really speak to the depths of that, because it's like I don't. None of us here identify in a non-binary fashion. I mean, even on the queer scale, that's, how do I put this? Maybe a bit more obscured than, say, just being gay.
Mm-hmm.
It, like, just for reference, that gets attached to the plus side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, It's a really good project. Um,
Mhm.
recommendation is hard in a lot of ways because once again, this is a very intense, very personal story. Definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'd say the other big problem is the length. Um, without getting too into spoilers, it's fairly open ended where it ends. But here's the thing: I don't know if it's necessarily a happy ending in like real life because okay, clearly the two people, Ao and Bo, if I'm remembering the naming conventions, A and B again,
Mhm.
like clearly they got back together to make this project, but I don't know if they, got back together. Like, especially given COVID, like they could have remotely collaborated on this. Like clearly they've kept touch, so that's good.
Mhm.
And they've also kind of figured out what they wanted to do. They wanted to make a game. So
Mhm.
that's stuff that's not answered in the text itself, but it doesn't seek to answer that. It's all about not knowing what the fuck to do um, with 4 years of your life coming to a close, and your best friend slash significant other going back overseas. Now, of course, that's going to be emotionally devastating.
Mhm.
As far as music goes, it has the soundtrack you'd probably expect. Very melodic indie tunes is the best way I could put it.
Mhm.
You know, if you've heard it, like if you've heard an indie game soundtrack, or you've probably heard this soundtrack. It's not a judgment call. That's just kind of how it sounds. Uh, also worth noting, I believe this game also includes like I'm not sure if it's a prototype game or prequel, like a game jam game, but Prairie Road clearly was the earlier project that got included with this. I'm willing to bet it was like the game jam game. That's usually how this stuff works.
Mhm.
Devs actually listen to this and wish to inform us about that. Fine. Um, and let's see, pricing. This is perhaps my biggest bone of contention with the whole work. It clocks in at $15 a regular. Um, it's got the No Longer Home Farewell Edition, which is clocking in at $25.47. It's got the soundtrack for both No Longer Home and the prequel Fury Road. Um, and that soundtrack, those soundtracks alone are $14.98. So, as usual, that's usually the best bundle. $15 to $25 is a bit much to ask for this. Like, if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, I'd say by all means. But it's like a lot of it has to do with the length. It's the same kind of problem I have with Truffle Pigs. It's like what's here is pretty fantastic. It's just it's hard to justify a few hours. I suppose there's a bit more replay value here because there's probably multiple playthrough styles, not necessarily endings, but there's multiple choices. That being said, um, it really doesn't feel like a game you'd come back to. Very one and done here. So probably wait until it's about $10, I'd say. Um, as far as the soundtrack, I I would say it's probably worth it outside of the game itself. Um, bundled together, like the soundtracks, because they're actually like, I'm not sure if they're licensed, but they feel licensed. Be why it's a bit pricier than some other soundtracks we've featured, but that's one of those things that we don't know until we get developer insight. Like I said, overall, it's a short but solid experience. Maybe just wait for a sale on it. Right, so any other questions, comments, or concerns about No Longer Home?
Not much.
I think I'm good.
All right, then. So that'll about do it for this game. Be sure to tune in after the break, as the Golics will be reviewing A Tale of Synapse, the Chaos Theories.